Welcome, everyone. Thank you guys for stopping by. Welcome back to My Understanding. The goal of this is just trying to figure out as much as we can about the information that we see on a daily basis, try and filter out the nonsense from the reality. And today we've got a special guest. This is someone that I've had the pleasure of meeting during our time together at Lifetime. From the jump, I could tell that this guy had next level knowledge. When it came to training, he's had years of experience coaching physique athletes, powerlifters, all sorts of people. And yet he's one of the most down-to-earth and generous people that I've come across in this industry. He shares what he knows freely, and he's always hoping to make a positive impact. On top of that, he's one of the brains behind the supplement company Amino Asylum. So he's got his own little company going on there, and it is some fantastic stuff. So feel free to go check that out, you guys. And I'm really excited to have him on. Please welcome Eric to the show. Eric, how are you doing?
Good, but I will make a correction. I do not own Amino Asylum. That's not mine. Amino Asylum is a company that we do work with. I own Lore Science.
Lore Science. Okay. I was aware of that one. I apologize then. Yes. Thank you for that correction.
That's all right.
You are somebody that works with Amino Asylum. Got it. I will. Yeah, that's good to know.
So we do a little bit of stuff with them, but I appreciate the intro. That was way more generous than I think I deserved, but I appreciate it. You give me way too much credit. I'm just a dude with a beard.
A dude with a beard. It's a magnificent beard, though.
But yeah, no, we go back quite a ways.
Yeah.
I've been doing cool stuff for a long time.
Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit of your backstory, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing it with everyone.
Yeah, of course. I got into bodybuilding pretty early on. I think, like most people. Well, let me rephrase that. I got into bodybuilding when it was only bodybuilding, before they had any of the different divisions. So, your mindset was, I want to be a freak. And that's a different kind of mindset. But I got introduced to it really early, and I just gravitated towards it, thought it was cool, fell in love with it, and was very blessed that my parents got me a gym membership when I was 14. And bless her heart, whether she wanted to or not, my mom still took me to the gym every single day, literally 7 days a week, until I got my driver's license. And then I took myself every single day.
Yeah.
And I got really lucky that the gym that I went to was filled with professional athletes. So there was professional bodybuilders, professional strongmen. There was powerlifters that had, world records there. So everything at an elite level was at my fingertips. And when you're young, you don't understand how valuable that is, to be able to be corrected and steered in the right direction from the beginning. And so you're not, wasting time doing things wrong. And I remember I started there when I was 14, and then I left when I was 17, right after I graduated from high school. And I came back a couple years later. And in that time, from going from 17 to, I think I was about 20 when I came back, I had surpassed all of those people that gave me guidance. Not so much just as far as knowledge goes, but just size and strength. Like I was always been pretty strong. That was great English. I've always been very strong. I was a strong individual. And then when I came back, I think I came back at maybe almost 80 pounds heavier than when I left.
Jeez.
And
gosh. Okay.
All the guys, I was like, oh, that guy's so big. I wish I could be like him. I came back and I was like, that guy's so small. Why did I think he was so big? So it was a really interesting thing of, when you just stay in your lane and you're consistent with your work, it's amazing what will happen with just consistency. So then, I progressed through there. I had a couple of friends that were like, hey, we need some help. This one guy called me and said, hey, I've got a buddy. He's got questions. Can I pass you on to a 3-way call? And this was the start of how I ever prepped anyone. I was 19 years old. And a buddy, Dan, he called me. He goes, hey, I got this guy, he's got the drive. And I think that, you could really help him. Well, okay, sure. I don't really know, but okay. So he calls and he asks, typical gym bro questions. A lot of it was PD related stuff. And so I said, let me help you. You're just kind of like a lost puppy dog. And so I met with this guy and we did this incredible transformation. Until this day, it's probably one of my favorites, not just because it's my first, because it was so dramatic. I met this guy, his name is Robert, and he was about 5'3", maybe on a good day, relatively short guy. and he was 155 pounds. And I remember this because I was like, well, I can see the structure there, but we've got quite a bit of fat to lose. He wasn't fat, but he wasn't lean either. Just kind of like in that little fluffy area.
Yeah.
4 days out from the show that we were prepping for, he was 184 pounds without an ounce of fat or water on him. He was healed.
That is wild.
So it was a really neat one. And that gave me this, sense of, hey, it was pretty cool. Maybe I should do this. And so I just started helping people out over time. And I was always doing other business related things. So coaching never really was my forte. Mm-hmm. I just enjoyed working out. And if I could help people, then cool, whatever. And so I had helped a couple people at this one gym. And I was, at the time, this is a relatively famous story now. I think everyone in the fitness industry has heard this story. I was bouncing between two different gyms. And so I was at this gym in Mountain View, and then I was at this other gym in Vacaville. This is all in California. And these are several hours apart from each other. So I was living in Burlingame, which is right below San Francisco. And I was driving about an hour to get to Mountain View. And then going the other direction up north, it was taking me about an hour and a half to get to Vacaville. And what person in their right mind would drive this far on a daily basis to go to these gyms? But when you do specialty, things, at the time, I don't know, I must have been probably a relatively lean 270 pounds. So, bigger than most people. You needed to find specialty gyms because you outgrow commercial gyms. Mm-hmm. When you're, I posted a picture from one of my rack pools the other day, and it was nine 45-pound plates on each side. And it was at a corporate gym, and you can just see the bar bending. It looks like a rainbow. Yeah. So you need to find specialty gyms that can, appropriately support those kind of workouts. Yeah. And so, at that time in the Bay Area, it didn't really exist. You had to really search for these specialty gyms. And so I was helping two people for free at this gym in Mountain View, and they said, you need to start charging people. And I was like, no, I don't do that. And they're like, well, you're going to. And I was like, no, thank you for offering, but I don't want to do that. And so they kicked me out. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. It's your gym. You run it however you want. And I would have just left it like that. But they pulled people into the gym, and they started, harassing them, saying, you need to turn over your phone. We need to see if you're talking shit about the owners or the gym as a whole. And most of those people just completely folded and, handed their phone and said, look, I've got nothing to hide. And one person who really didn't have anything to hide, she stood her ground. And she said, it's my opinion, whether I am or whether I'm not talking smack about the gym or the gym owners, that is my opinion, and I am entitled to that. And so they told her to pack her stuff and get out. And so it snowballed. It got so crazy. That gym called the gym in Vacaville and said, hey, we just kicked one of these people out. We want you to ban them from your gym too. Wow. And so this is the introduction of how I got into real coaching. So that gym in Vacaville, it's called Old School Iron. These people are 100% family for life. And at that time, that gym had 5 owners. 4 of the owners called me directly on my cell phone and said, hey, we just want to let you know that this gym called us and said that they want us to ban you. Otherwise, they will no longer do any co-promotions with powerlifting or anything like that with us. We told them, go bleep yourself. I don't know if you curse on your episodes, but derogatory term, go do that. Yeah. And so they said, you always have a place to work out. If you want to train people, go for it. We don't care, but you're always welcome here. You've done nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. And as a thank you, because, these people took a huge chance on me and they don't know me. Yeah. They just knew some big hairy dude was rolling into the gym. They stood by me when they didn't know me or they didn't need to. And so as a thank you, I prepped, I lost count now, but I'm pretty sure it was like 18 people that year for free, just to spite the other gym. Yeah. That's how we got Gary Slater with the all-time world record and all the other national records that win. Every single person I prepped got nothing less than a national record.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That's how that started. It was purely out of spite. And then it was just one of those things where, it's like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. Yeah. Because making athletes strong is not hard. That's why I really fell in love with the bodybuilding aspect of it, because every prep for every athlete is different. You could have the same athlete and every show is going to be 100% different. There's similarities, but it's very different. With powerlifting, I lost the love for it because it wasn't hard for me. Making
Gotcha.
someone, bench more, squat more. These are not hard things. They're just, basic mathematical equations with, certain food variants. And then I just stopped caring because it was too easy. I'm like, cool, everyone wins. Like,
Yeah. Great.
yeah, and it sounds kind of, narcissistic, but I'm like, I needed a challenge. It wasn't a challenge for me anymore. I'm like, cool, we win everything. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So got into
You're looking for
bodybuilding.
that next thing. Yeah.
Right. And I needed a challenge. I needed something that was going to be humbling for me, but something that I could just keep growing with. And I love now that I do coaching full time and I do it internationally and we've got people in 6 different countries. It's so fascinating because every day is a new adventure. So
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, okay, we've got 3 people doing 3 different shows in all different time zones. One's in different country, and there's all sorts of weird things that go with international travel, with food preparations and stuff like that. So I love that challenge. So I'm thankful for those bad people because I would have never done this. This was never in my wheelhouse of, career options or where I was going in life. So thanks.
Never would have found the spite to, yeah, never would have had the spite to get your passion going.
Right. Yeah. What a petty thing. Be like, I started my career because these other people sucked.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? It turns out it worked out great though. Sometimes the road you don't see just turns out to be the best.
Yeah. No. And it was a total blessing in disguise. And, I tell people all the time, like, you get speed bumps of life, but they're not walls. You might slow down more than others, but it's never telling you that you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just stay the course.
Yeah.
Discipline and motivation are very different things and they get confused. You could be motivated all day long, but when you lose the motivation, the discipline is what gets you there.
Yeah. That is a great way to put it. And I think that's one of those things that I have to kind of keep telling myself as well. Cause I've been working out for years now as well, but I would say somewhat inconsistently. And I think there are times where like I've had to take month breaks from the gym, and like when you take long breaks, people are like, oh, just hop back into it. But sometimes that motivation isn't there. And so you have to have that discipline to be like, okay, I know I need to do this, even if I don't feel motivated to do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What is that? If you keep waiting for the right time, next thing you know, 6 months have gone by when you could have made 6 months of progress. Slow progress is still better than no progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forget what book it is, but it was very similar. It was talking about like just being 1% better every day.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't have to make huge strides, but just these small little changes make a huge difference.
Yeah. I do a thing, and I've talked about this publicly for years. I used to keep it exclusively just for my business related athletes, because I do some business like mindset coaching as well, other than just the physique and all the other specialty things that I do.
Yeah.
But it became such a successful thing that I started using it as a tool for my competitive people. And I was like, wow, this is something that really works. And so I try and get more people to do it. You can adapt it. It's not trademarked, so don't be a dick and trademark it. But you can have this. I do a thing that's called rainbow goals. Now, a rainbow goal is you can see the end of the rainbow before you've started it. So when I bring on new athletes or of any kind, I always tell them, like, you can tell me and I will help you get through them, or you can keep it to yourself and just make sure that you're keeping yourself accountable. But I want 3 rainbow goals. I want something that's easily obtainable within this first week. I want something that's a little bit harder, that's going to take you maybe a month or 2 months to accomplish, and then a long-term goal. So every time you achieve one of these rainbow goals, you push it a little bit further. So if you have someone who's coming to you and they're, morbidly obese and they're brand new to the gym, these are great things to do because you're training the brain to go from, oh, this is a pain in the ass, to then it just becomes second nature for them. And so you're like, okay, great. I need you to drink, X amount of water for 3 days straight. Once you hit that goal, you reward yourself with something that you want, not something that you need. So with business related things, it's pretty straightforward. You say, okay, I need to gross 10% more than I did the previous month. Great. I've achieved that goal. I'm going to buy something stupid that I don't need, like a fancy watch or really nice shoes, whatever it may be. And then with the fitness people, as long as they're not in contest prep, similar idea. Okay,
Hmm.
you know, you did cardio 7 days a week this week, perfect. You get to reward yourself with something that you want, primarily something that's not going to disrupt their stomach, but something enjoyable. Like, hey, you know, you want to go get, a bundt cake from the Nothing Bundt Cake place. By all means, go for it. You've earned it. It gives them that nice little mental break, and then it refuels that motivation. Same thing like with like the refeed meals. Like 9 out of 10 times, these people that are getting refeed meals do not have metabolic crash. They
Hmm.
just need it for the mental, I got something that's not just boring chicken and rice.
Yeah. Just give them
So
a little bit of a
those rainbow
dopamine
goals
boost.
keep people productive short and long term.
Yeah.
And then for trainers, whether you do coaching like I do or in-person personal training, this is a great tool for client retention as well, because like, great, we've achieved all these goals together. How many more can we keep going? And they're like, this was great, I've achieved all this great stuff with this person, of course I'm going to keep paying them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love it. It's a great way you're building that relationship with the clients, and it keeps them excited about what they're doing.
right. And when you see people, win those little victories, they're like, hey, like I got a message the other day and it was such a cool one. It had nothing to do with like a contest prep. He was like, hey, man, I just want to let you know this is the first time I've ever been able to do push-ups. That's a huge victory. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes, it is.
So stuff like that, then it makes you feel good. You're like, oh man, that refilled my emotional bucket. Like I'm, I'm doing good things. I'm helping people. And
Yeah.
that's really enjoyable.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. That's one of the things that I think I've loved so much about just getting into training is getting to see people reach their goals and get excited to go for the next one. Yeah. Well, I know one thing that you specialize in is diabetes, and that's been one of the things that I think I've kind of dived into a little bit over the past, like I'd say, 6 months or more, is just trying to understand, like, I would say very common diseases, health conditions like that. Just because I had in my last episode, I had one of my coworkers come on and we were talking about longevity. And for me, I have a lot of, I would say, family issues and other things, and a lot of clients that all have related in one way to either like diabetes, Alzheimer's, or other cognitive functions, and even health issues. And so I think when it comes down to diabetes, one thing that I've been curious about, because my understanding of it is basically just it's a condition where the body doesn't know how to utilize or produce insulin properly, and this can affect a person's ability to lose weight or even gain muscle. And in my experience with it, I've seen a lot of, I would say, a lot of different results. A lot of variables go into it because of how it can affect the rest of the body. Um, and you've been in the bodybuilding world doing a lot of physique training and somebody who specializes in diabetes. So how did your journey lead you to specialize in coaching people with diabetes?
So the specialty work, like with the neurological issues, like with Alzheimer's and diabetes, is because I had family members that really, really suffered from that when I was a kid. And so, as a kid, most kids are pretty pure at heart, and it's not enjoyable to watch people that you love suffer.
Yeah.
And so watching people suffer with the Alzheimer's, but seeing how it affected the people around them too, just, their significant others, it's not just watching someone decline. And then with the unregulated sugar levels and things like that, how much that affects the rest of the body, but can also work negatively hand in hand with Alzheimer's. It was something that I really wanted to look into. One, is a pretty sucky thing to watch,
Yeah.
but two, I was like, is that my future? Am I seeing myself when I'm older? Because homie, that does not look enjoyable. So
Yeah.
how can you prevent it? Can you prevent it? What are some remedies? And so that's how that information started. So when I was younger, I started really I've always been into science. So like the way that, I don't know how they do it in other parts, but in California, uh, your school is done by credits. And so I had accumulated all of my high school science credits by the time I was done with the 6th grade.
Okay.
And I
Wow.
wish, hindsight's always 2020, but you're like, cool, I'm done. But I wish that I had that driving force from someone being like, cool, you did this, keep going.
Yeah.
because there was like 6 years where I never really did anything with it. I was just like, I'm really smart. And then when I really needed to utilize that information, I was like, oh, I was not all that smart.
Nice.
But I was really lucky where I could retain the information pretty easy. You know, I read it once and then it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that got started. But there was a really big pivoting point in not so much the education, but the understanding of how the body worked. So I could work in synergy with everything. Someone told me, and this is something that sticks in my brain every single day. People memorize things. Very few people learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a bold statement coming from a med student.
Yeah.
You're seeing people that, you know, you're supposed to be, you know, being able to trust. You ask them questions, they should have the answers for these medical things, but they're just memorizing what's coming out of a book and not truly understanding what is happening. So when I started really digging into the micronutrition aspect of it, because macros is pretty straightforward. Protein, fats, carbs, bro. Ooh, eats big, gets big. When you started figuring out, okay, let's look at, you know, like a sweet potato. Like a sweet potato is a very inefficient carb. When I say that, it's a very inefficient carb source for energy because it has a very slow breakdown, and only half of those carbs are used as an energy source, while the other half sit in the liver waiting for a breakdown. And we'll talk about that with the diabetes. But for a performance athlete, it's like one of like the least enjoyable things to eat because by the time it's used as an energy source, it has a very low conversion into glycogen, which is what keeps the muscle bellies full. Once you start learning the weird things like that, it really pays dividends in understanding what's happening with the other parts of the body. So like the type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is the body just like genetically cannot do it. Just it's not producing insulin nowhere near enough, or just flat out it's not doing it at all. Type 2 generally, I say generally because there has been exceptions, is a diet related issue and the body just cannot produce enough. And that's why you started seeing such a huge rise in some of these GLP-1s. So like you see like semaglutide, tirzepatide, you know, other things, and there's metformin, there's other things too. Yeah. But what these GLP-1s are doing is they are telling the body to produce more insulin. There's more to it than that, but that's the basic gist of it. But when you have unregulated sugar, people are like, oh, you know, it's not the end of the world. It may not be the end of the world right now, but what it's going to do to the deterioration of the rest of your body over 30 years, yeah, it is the end of the world. So by the time you start having neurological related issues where you start developing dementia, things like that,
yeah,
it's too late. You can kind of slow down the process, but you can't backtrack it. Like rheumatoid arthritis, you can backtrack. That's a different subject. But that's one of those things that you cannot. So when you live optimized, and I use this term because it's pretty important. Okay. When you look at what you're doing every day, you should also be thinking about how it's going to affect you long term. So when you see athletes, they're like, oh, you know, I started taking testosterone replacement at 20. Sure. What is it going to do to you long term, though? And sometimes, depending on how you're making the argument, it could really help you, or it could really hurt you. It just really depends on what your long-term aspirations are with it and the understanding between use and abuse. And I bring that up because understanding neurological performance is really crucial in this as well. So making sure that your brain has a sufficient amount of choline is probably one of the best things that you can do to prevent the deterioration of your brain. You need choline as a base for everything. So like for male hormones, testosterone is king. They say test is your base and then everything else goes around it. Choline is that base that you need. But people will also abuse antihistamines like crazy. And there's different types of antihistamines and they will do different things. Like Zyrtec and Claritin are totally safe to use all year long. It's not the end of the world because they do not strip choline out of the brain. Benadryl does aggressively strip choline out of the brain. And so when you see the long-term negative effects of taking Benadryl consistently, is it has a direct correlation with dementia because it's constantly stripping out core nutrition that you really need. Then you start looking at other things like, you'll see nootropics that will impact the body's ability to uptake the choline more efficiently, which is a huge thing, because if you're able to keep your brain strong, and you can actually grow new brain tissue, there's a special name for it, but it's a real thing. Okay. So if you can keep your brain healthy, optimized from an early age, you can help slow down and prevent the deterioration as you get older. So taking things like choline, high concentrated levels of omega-3s that have elevated DHA. These are great things for long-term brain function. And then you start looking into the other things like different forms of magnesium that help with the neurons sending the signal out. So I'm trying not to get super sidetracked, because there's like hours and hours of information for this.
There's a lot to go over.
There's so much to untangle with it. But making sure that all these things are healthy and working correctly make a really, really big difference. But the one thing that people will start to notice, that when their brain is optimized, you don't have filler words. So if you go back and re-listen to this podcast, which you should, I have not said a single filler word. There's no okay. There's no like, there's no So making sure that your brain can process things as efficiently as possible really pays dividends to the overall quality of life. But going back to the hormone thing, I'm going to skip a little bit and then we'll come back.
Totally.
Having elevated testosterone levels is very beneficial. Now, I said the difference between use and abuse.
Yes.
So what we're seeing right now is a huge surplus of these hormone replacement clinics. There's nothing wrong with this. This is a great thing to have. When you look at things from just a basic mathematical equation, you got to figure out, okay, like investments or people that gamble. If you win by a percentage and you focus on the percentage and not the number amount, you're having a pretty good day, because as long as you went up even 1%, you left better than you came in. So let's say we'll stick with male hormones, because everyone understands that it's pretty straightforward. Female is a little bit different, it's more complex. But men produce, on average, a healthy adult male is about 7 milligrams of testosterone per day. So averages out to 49. You round it up, 50 milligrams per week. You go to an HRT clinic and they prescribe you anywhere between 160 to 200 milligrams is a pretty common dose for prescription. Okay, let's look at that from a percentage standpoint. That's a 400% increase. Huge. Do you have 400% more muscle? No. It'd be cool, but you don't. So what is the benefit of having, that much more testosterone in the body? Is it an advantage? Is it a disadvantage? It's a huge advantage, because now you're dealing with a couple of other, things that are happening in the background that the normal medical professional is not telling you. One, it is a huge increase in protein synthesis. So the protein that you're eating is able to be utilized as fuel for the body. It's going to the muscle tissues. You've ended up with a faster recovery time. You end up with better cognitive function. So people that take testosterone, both men and women, will notice a huge increase in their sense of well-being. Their stress drops. Things just feel better. Yeah. One of the things that also works with that too, because now the food is being utilized more efficiently, is inflammation control. There is a huge difference between inflammation control and inflammation suppression. So when you're thinking about things long term, you always want to deal with inflammation control. It means the body is balancing itself out. So if you take in, a higher amount of testosterone, and now your food is being utilized as an energy source, it's not sitting in the digestive tract just waiting to be broken down, or it's being wasted, which can then cause oxidative stress, just internal inflammation. So if you have internal inflammation in your digestion tract, you can end up having, leaky gut, which is gross. But then too, you can also end up with mild forms of colitis. You have inflammation in the intestines, and then you still end up with the runs. So all these negative things always come back to the runs. You don't want liquid poop. So fix it. The inflammation control is a really big thing. So we talk about inflammation control all the time, not just for, every day, because, you don't want your knees to hurt. You're like, oh man, I'm 30 years old. My knees are fried, dude. Are they really, or is your body just inflamed from the American diet because it's so
Mhm.
high in omega-6? So omega-6 is a pro-inflammatory thing, but I say inflammation control because you can utilize that to your advantage.
Yeah.
So uh, how can you use inflammation to your advantage? I will tell you.
Okay.
So let's look at red meat. Red meat all across the board. It doesn't matter whether it's grass fed from, a major grocery store or whatever. All red meat has arachidonic acid, which is a pro-inflammatory omega-6, meaning that it stimulates inflammation. So if you have red meat before you go and do resistance training in the gym, when you're putting a load on the muscle, you're getting these little tears and you're generating inflammation. If you can stimulate that inflammation to be more aggressive, and then assuming that that post-workout nutrition is there to aid in that inflammation control, whether it be, a high-fat diet with fish or something of the sort, and you can let the body regulate itself, that muscle will come back thicker and stronger every single day.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things where, can you use it to your advantage? Absolutely. But there has to be that balance, and there has to be that awareness of what you're doing internally.
I love it.
And then, dealing with like the neurological side of, what is that inflammation doing for the brain? So most people have heard of type 1, type 2 diabetes. Very few people have heard of type 3. Type 3 diabetes is inflammation of the brain. So most of these, autoimmune related issues, things like that, they're all inflammation related issues. And most of them are either curable or they are preventable from, having another outbreak. And so like, if you look at things like Hashimoto thyroiditis, this is where the body has autoimmune related issue and it generates antibodies that go and attack the thyroid. And if untreated, the antibodies will completely destroy your thyroid and it'll be gone. No bueno.
No.
So, and then people say, oh man, like I have Hashimoto's, like I just have no energy. And, my doctor has me on this mega dose of T4 for my thyroid. And I can still, kind of make it through the day without needing a nap. Most people, I think, let's see, over the last 2 years, I've worked with 11 people that had Hashimoto thyroiditis. And every single person is in complete remission. The only person that still has to take medication is someone who went unregulated for almost 20 years. But that's not their fault. They didn't have proper testing for a mass audience of doctors that properly understood it. You used to have to go see a specialist because when you look at it on the test, you're like, well, my T3, my T4 numbers are totally fine on my thyroid, but they're missing a thing called TPO. And that's what you really got to look for when you're fighting, autoimmune related issues. But all of these issues, the diabetes, the chronic inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, is inflammation related. It all comes back down to the same thing.
Yeah.
So how do you fix it? You got to eat better. And people are like, well, I don't have the time. Bologna sandwich, homie.
Yeah.
If I can travel the world and I can still maintain normal food, you can too. You're not that busy. I guarantee you're not that busy.
It's just a matter of making it like one of your priorities.
Right. And you're like, well, I don't know how to cook. Good thing for Walmart, because they have completely cooked chicken and steak in a 1 pound container for $7.
Perfect.
Pata.
Yeah. Very easily accessible for sure.
It's super easy to make sure that your body's getting the correct nutrition.
Yes,
and it's 2025. There's literally no excuse. There's entire meal prep companies. You can send them. Like I have a couple athletes that are busy, work professionals, and I send them, their diet for the week. They send it over to the company. They prep their food. They mail it to them. And they don't have to do anything except pay for the people to prep their food for them, which is slightly more than what they were already paying just to go grocery shopping anyway.
Yeah.
And then everything's done. And so there's no excuse. They're like, cool, like everything's done. I know what I'm supposed to eat. I know when I'm supposed to eat. And I just make it happen.
Yeah. And I'm gonna pause you there just because that actually does bring up a few questions that I have for you here in a little bit. One thing I want to kind of backtrack on is the inflammation topic, because inflammation can come from a lot of different things. And I'm curious about kind of a sidestep from it, which would be just like your blood sugar levels, essentially. And so one thing I've noticed is that stress and people who seem to just sleep horribly both kind of have their blood sugar spike just as much as bad food choices. So how often do you find yourself talking to clients about like lifestyle choices, and how do you kind of work them through changing habits to help promote better sleep and better food choices, knowing that they do just the same as somebody who's eating poorly?
So the lifestyle questions come in before I send them an invoice,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a weekly conversation for all of these people. So one of the things that we see consistently with people having, elevated sugar, and they're like, hey, I feel like I'm eating okay, but my body's not processing it, is you got to look at hydration.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with your plasma level. So plasma is the water, that's the fluid that's in the blood. And so if you are dehydrated internally, those levels are not circulating through the body. So it's having a hard time regulating everything as well. I'm going to answer this, but I'm going to make a quick little sidestep. Every person who's ever worked with me has the exact same complaint. They're like, I used to think water was just water until I met you. And now I have nothing but derogatory things to say about you, because if I go to the gas station and get water, I can no longer buy 99-cent water. I always buy the $7 Voss water. And I hate you. You make me spend so much money. But it's a really important thing, because if you're battling inflammation things, proper hydration is really key. And I say that because hydration is not just limited to water. But when you do look at water, let's say you're out on the road and like you're me and you travel all the time, you're going to stop and buy water at some point. You don't want to buy smart water, and you don't want to buy core water.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because it's reverse osmosis water. And so what that is
Gotcha.
dehydrated. It's not dehydrated water. Got that. Wrong word.
We're really optimizing our brain here.
Yes. I thought this dehydrated water was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's distilled water. And so they've added flavor. They've added aminos to it and certain, electrolytes for flavoring. So you'll see things be like, oh, we've added potassium and magnesium for flavor. Mm-hmm. So the more core water, the more smart water, or any of these reverse osmosis waters that you drink, you'll start to be like, man, I just keep licking my lips. And it's just pulling out the fluid, and you're paying extra. You're paying a premium to dehydrate yourself.
Yeah.
So getting things, like just normal spring water. I mean, even most of like the tap water that's coming out of your own home, for the most part, is totally fine. If you're really concerned about the acidic levels in it, add 1/5 of a teaspoon of baking soda to it to alkalinize that water. That's what you're paying a premium for, is for alkaline water. And what that means is you're just reducing the acidic levels. You don't want to do that for every single drink of water that you do, though, because you do need some inflammation. Be like taking your estrogen. You need estrogen. You don't want to get rid of it completely. So those are crucial things to keep a lookout for. And don't buy dehydrated water. Don't do that.
We'd have to have a whole other conversation with
That's
you.
a whole other thing. NASA's like, how do we sell that?
Yeah.
So
be the next big thing. This could be the new TikTok trend.
I bought some dehydrated water. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So then when you start looking at the food, you're like, okay, these people, they have elevated sugar or whatever it may be. Okay, now we've addressed the water issue. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look at some of their stress. Is that stress coming from work stuff? Like, are they just having a hard time letting go of things? Which is a really common thing, and it sounds like a silly question, but some people really harbor on that negativity. They're like, oh, Steve at work kind of gave me a weird eye when I passed him by his cubicle. Ooh, I don't like that guy. And they spend 6 hours festering on this guy that they don't even see other than at work. Like, he's not doing anything for you or to you. Like, just because there's a mild inconvenience shouldn't backtrack what you've got going on in your life. Like, what is that saying? A wolf doesn't lose sleep over sheep.
Yeah.
Just understand where you are, stay in your lane. And then, you just got to let things go, because 9 out of 10 times it's not the end of the world. They're just inconveniences. Like, I was having this conversation with my kid. She was having like an emotional day, which, it's whatever, happens. Everyone gets it. And she was just really, really harboring on this negativity thing. And I'm like, okay, hang on. Let me ask you something. Does that situation prevent you from doing anything? No. So then it's not a problem. It's an inconvenience.
Hmm.
Don't let an inconvenience ruin your day.
Yeah.
There are people that are going to inconvenience you, and you just have to realize that that person's an idiot and carry on with your day. So when you deal with, that kind of external stress where, you look at, do they have family stress? Are they in a relationship where they're giving their emotional love to the wrong person because it's not coming back to them? Maybe it's like a one-sided relationship and they're putting in 150% and they're getting back 3%. So they just feel like they're
Hmm.
completely drained because they're trying to get love by giving love and it's never
Yeah.
coming back. And that's really sad to watch because it's not really our place to say, look, you're in a failing relationship, but you just need to be a supportive, coach, supportive trainer, whatever, maybe even just a friend. Be like, look, man,
Yeah.
like, I know you're going through it.
Yeah.
Um,
You're almost
so
like
when
a
you,
therapist
yes, a
in a
lot of what I do
sense.
is being a
Yeah.
therapist. And then so when you deal with, that kind of external stress, you kind of figure out, where is it coming from? What is making you hold on to this water retention that you're so just built up with anxiety? People are constantly worried about 2 weeks from now when they're just unable to properly live in the moment. You go to any concert and look around and everyone's holding their phone looking at the concert through their phone, but they're not in the moment.
Hmm.
You got to just be there. Be a hippie. It's okay to turn your brain off and just kind of be retarded for a little bit.
Yeah.
So, then you start looking at, okay, we figured out where the stress is coming from. We
Hmm.
figured out your hydration things, but you still have sore joints or whatever it may be. Okay, let's look at, the food. Is your food timing incorrectly? Meaning that, are you having one super meal and then there's nothing for the rest of the day, and then it's another super meal in the evening? Because then the body isn't able to properly regulate how it's breaking down the nutrition, and it's constantly, excuse me, in a starvation mode. So what your goal is for fixing someone like that, or even if yourself, you're listening to this and you're like, oh shit, these sound like me. That's me. I'm all screwed up.
Yeah.
Do the best you can with spacing out the nutrition consistently, because the food consistency will really make that big of a difference. Even if you don't change the food sources, but just getting consistent meals in, every 3-ish hours. And you're like, okay, like my metabolism is going faster. I can feel it. My core temperature has increased. I know that I'm sweating much easier in the gym now. Perfect. The body is moving in the right direction. What's the next step? Making sure that every meal has prioritized protein. And it doesn't have to be one particular source. It's not, the golden, rule, like every meal has to have, ground bison because it's the nectar of the gods. As long as it's protein as a base, and then you sprinkle
Yeah.
things around it, then you can kind of start making, the more scientific tweaks. And that's a whole nother conversation for another episode. But just getting the consistency and eliminating some of that outside stress. And if, if you've got people that work, in a metropolis area and they're like, I got to commute, I hate my job. My boss is an idiot. He takes all my ideas. I never get any credits, just bullshit. You start looking at, okay, well, how can I help you? What was helping eliminate some of these, cortisol, big spikes that you're having? Magnolia bark extract. It's a
Hmm.
huge, huge thing. It's so good that I put it in the fat burner for lore science. But it does. It completely kills cortisol level. And then it's kind of a hard thing to find by itself for whatever reason. So, St. John's wort, things like that, those are all really good. And then just normal, just meditation. Like
Hmm.
having blue screen detox is huge.
Yeah.
And no one does it nearly as much as they should. Oh, Lord knows I'm guilty of that. I get the screen time alerts from my phone every week. It's like, your screen time on your phone is over 9 hours every single week, plus laptop time.
Hmm. Yeah.
My eyeballs are just disintegrating before you.
Yep. Well, yeah, and I feel like that's one of the hardest things that a lot of people kind of grasp with. I mean, I've had countless talks with plenty of my clients as well of like, hey, before bed, even like you're using it throughout the whole day. Try and take, 10, 20 minutes before bed, just turn it off, read a book, try and just get away from blue light. And every single response is always like, yeah, but like I need it, like I'm using it to read or I'm
I got to do
scrolling
my
through
Duolingo
stuff.
before I go to bed, man.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always some reason to keep yourself in front of that screen, and getting rid of it for even just a couple minutes to like a half hour makes a humongous difference.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ask anyone who's been like on a camping trip and they're like, "Oh, I didn't have cell service for 3 days." You know how liberating that is? Oh
Yeah.
man.
They always come back and they're like, man, I feel so good right now. Like I feel so much better. And then the next moment they're like, all
Yeah.
right, just right in
Guess I
front of
got
that
emails
screen
to check.
again. Yeah. It's always a drag once they get back from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say I have one more question for you, I think, which is kind of in that related to blood sugar, I guess. So I've read a lot of studies that have talked about intermittent fasting, which you kind of just touched on a little bit with the, having one meal in the morning, then one in the night. That can be one form of it, and there's different forms of intermittent fasting. So I've read a lot of studies that have talked about it being good with people who have diabetes because it allows their blood sugar to regulate over a longer period of time and reduce their insulin resistance, leptin, and adiponectin. Do you ever have your clients, whether they're athletes or not, intermittently fast? And then why or why not? I'd be curious on that.
Generally, I don't, for a couple different things. I say generally because I have done it in the past, but it's a very small group of people that really need it. There's a big difference between the people that need it and the people that can just benefit from it. So by doing the intermittent fasting, let's say, you wake up at 6 a.m. and you don't eat until 4 p.m. Your body is essentially burning off its reserves, which, if someone's morbidly obese and they're just starting, they're trying to get their health in check, those people respond really well for it because now they're starting to move. They're starting to get the body to, essentially turn on. Those are great tools on helping burn off, when you have, extra. It's really good for getting people to rebalance themselves if they are super, super inflamed. So people that, don't have, a balance of their diet, and then they just have this crazy chronic inflammation and everything, they've got leaky gut, they've got all these other issues going on. They've got the total brain fog, their fingertips hurt because they're so inflamed internally. It works really well for those kind of resets. I don't like utilizing it long term.
Yes.
Because at some point, assuming that you're a relatively active person, you're not going to get the nutrition as much as you need it. Okay. And so making sure that the body is getting an adequate amount of nutrition and that it's balanced is much more important, in my opinion, than just, okay, we've held off from eating for, 16 hours or whatever it may be, and then I'm going to have 2 supersized meals. There is only so much that the body can actually break down appropriately. And so if your goal is to get, your glucose under control, and all of a sudden you're like, cool, I just had 8 ounces of something and 10 ounces of carbs, or, whatever it may be, large portions, you're kind of back to square one of defeating the whole purpose. Like, if you have insulin related issues, it's a good thing to start with so you can see what the body needs versus what you want. And then I would quickly change from that.
Yeah.
And I get it for the people that do it for religious reasons. And then that makes it really tricky from a coaching standpoint, prepping athletes when they're like, oh, I've got this religious thing going on. I can't eat during these time frames for X amount of weeks. Yeah. Like, okay, then you just have to be very diligent about what nutrition they are having when they can eat. But for long-term goals, no, it's not something that I normally utilize. I try to focus on the micronutrition aspect and figure out exactly what they have going on. Especially like for diabetic related people, let's say like a type 2 diabetic, I try to get people in the gym focusing on resistance training. So assuming that your body is healthy and that, you don't have chronic inflammation and your liver is healthy and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, you're getting IGF production. It's all that dehydrated water. Yeah. You're getting the IGF from your liver. And so that is the main part of where that's coming from in the body. And IGF is insulin-like growth factor. It's the driving force of shuttling all this nutrition into the cells. So if you go into the gym, you do this resistance training, you get these little bits of inflammation tears, you're stimulating IGF production inside the cells. And so if you're able to stimulate elevated levels of IGF, you're able to drive the food in there. Now, when you have elevated levels of IGF, it also keeps sugar levels down. So like with type 1 diabetics, I've had really good success with utilizing a peptide called IGF-LR3, which is long chain IGF. So it's active for about 20 hours. It doesn't bind to anything. It's a really neat thing. It's a super nerdy conversation. But I've had people get off of insulin completely by utilizing this. It's a huge helping tool. And so there's a bunch of things that go with that, but that's kind of, where we figure it out is dehydrated water and IGF.
Yes.
So
Great
if
combo.
right. So if you can get the body to just work more efficiently, you have less of a necessity of utilizing some of these Western medications.
Yeah.
Some of them are totally fine and they're not, long-term detrimental, but some of them are extremely long-term detrimental. Like what we're seeing now with the long-term, and we're not even qualifying it as long-term. It's only been a handful of, months to a year that some of these people that have been using semaglutide, and they're having life-altering, very, very negative issues. So yeah, just getting the body to work much more efficiently, stimulate. So I'll come back on. We'll do a second episode so I can explain this in better detail. But you want to work within three things. You want to have proper control over growth hormone, IGF, and insulin. If you can keep growth hormone and IGF elevated and utilize insulin like a light switch, your body will do everything that you want it to do when you want it done. But if you have insulin elevated and the others crashed, your body will go the wrong direction every single time. So full circle to that was just make sure that your body is getting adequate nutrition consistently. Because when you do these, these big surges of you're like, oh, I'm going to have all my calories in one meal. That was a weird, internet trend for a hot minute. Thank God that's over.
The 1 meal a day trend.
Yeah, we're going to have 5,000 calories in a meal. Like, enjoy stretching your stomach out. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
No, it's just one of those things like, once, if you know that you have health-related issues, address them properly. It's not one of those things where like, oh, well, it's gonna do whatever. Make sure that that's a priority, because not only short term, long term, it's going to be really, really crucial.
Yeah.
So my answer to that is intermittent fasting beneficial? Yes. Is it something that you should do long term? No.
Okay. Cool. That's I would say that's very similar to some of like the conclusions that I had kind of come to just based off of my own research. Is there are definitely those like immediate benefits that you can get from it, but over the long term, I think what I've found is basically you're just still trying to make sure you're getting enough nutrition. And if you're intermittent fasting, it can be very hard to do that at times.
Yeah.
So I think that's just like a very base level.
If you're just looking at it from a real basic standpoint, your body's in two stages. It's either anabolic or it's catabolic. If it's anabolic, it's healing itself. If it's catabolic, it's eating itself. So if you are starving yourself, you're going to be in the wrong one.
Yeah. It's funny because those are like the two words that I feel like I should know and remember, and I always seem to forget what catabolic is. I'm like anabolic, got it, locked down, and then every time I'm like, there's like one more, and I'm always like, what is that one again?
It's all that dehydrated water, man.
Yeah, I got to really get off of it. Well, I'm really glad that we've been talking about hormones and kind of guided it that way a little bit, because that does actually lead really well into my next question. So I feel like there's a lot of controversy around hormone replacement therapy, which we talked a little bit about at the beginning, but especially for women and those with insulin resistance or PCOS. From your coaching experience, how does hormone management play into someone's ability to build muscle or lose fat?
It's pretty much the number one thing, especially with women. So, men produce testosterone through testicles. There's a second part to that with pituitary gland, but the main focus that people need to address is generally testicles. For women, obviously, they don't have that. And if they do, it's not a lady. You're looking at the adrenal glands of where the testosterone is made for women. And so, women, especially, either stay at home, housewives, anyone, any woman is going to have just as much stress as their next, counterpart for a male. Making sure that they have eliminated the stress to let it go as efficiently and as quickly as possible is crucial. Because if your adrenal glands are dried up and fatigued, and you've been like, I did like 500 milligrams of caffeine a day just to make it, and I got to do all these other things, the smaller your adrenal glands are, the more they've shriveled up, the less hormones you're able to properly produce. So thankfully, most people are understanding that fats are a very beneficial thing for them. Dietary fats, not being fats, dietary fats. And so when you look at things like whole eggs are such a well-rounded bit of nutrition that you get. Like, protein aside, like, cool story, bro. Each, one has 7 grams of protein. But what you're getting out of the cholesterol from the egg yolk is literally life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a huge amount of choline for your brain from an egg yolk, but the cholesterol that you're getting from that is the key driving force of hormonal production. So any of your steroidal hormones, your testosterone, everything like that is coming from cholesterol. Now, quick side note, because I can already hear people going like, my doctor says don't eat cholesterol. Eating dietary cholesterol like that does not develop as plaque in the arteries. That's a calcium related issue. It's very different. But the calcium lies that the medical community teaches you is atrocious. Well, we will address that before the end of the episode because it's a big thing. But for women, making sure that you're getting an adequate amount of healthy fats for hormonal production is really, really crucial. Because if your testosterone, which is relatively small, I think, and if I remember correctly, the healthy adult female peaks at like 2 milligrams of testosterone per day. So not a huge amount.
Yeah, much less.
Yes. So when you're looking at it like that, it's like, okay, if your hormonal production is based off of, your adrenal glands, and you're over there, drinking, smart water, and you're slamming 2 energy drinks a day, your skin and your hair quality is going downhill really fast. And so like when we see women like with PCOS, this is a really, really common thing, where when you look at PCOS, they have chronic inflammation, but they also have, usually for the most part, testosterone that's through the roof. Sometimes it's the other way, but for the most part, they have really elevated testosterone and their estrogen's weird. And then that you see a lot of women that have PCOS have, aggressive facial hair or forearm hair, things like that. And they usually have a hard time getting pregnant. But a lot of it is inflammation related issues. So making sure that, those dietary fats are working in proper conjunction. Like, there's a big difference between the fat that you're going to get from olive oil. There's a big difference, in comparison to what you're getting just from red meats, like saturated fat, polyunsaturated fats. And you've got, things like, if you look at coconut oil, which is, they call it MCT, which is medium chain triglyceride. Those fats all do different things. So if you know what you need it for, you can stagger it through your day to benefit you the best. So, but the fat conversation, that's like a 3-hour conversation. But the hormone replacement, or, just balanced hormones in general for women is absolutely should be the number one thing. Even young girls. We had an athlete that was on the team that was just a stress ball. And I see this pretty consistently with people that work in the medical field, where they're just in this artificial light for 10, 12 hours a day, and they're just running around, underfed, usually dehydrated, and they're just a walking ball of stress. Now, this girl was 20 or 21 when she was on my team, and we should have had a normal 20-week prep for this particular show. Well, the whole prep of actual prep time was about 9 weeks, because I had her get blood work more than anyone I've ever had get done. She'd send me pictures on Friday, and she would look like she was like 6 months pregnant. She'd just have this huge belly. And I had to ask, I'm like, I don't want to pry, and I don't mean to be rude, but I got to ask, are you pregnant? Yeah. She was like, no, I'm not. Like, you got to have sex to have pregnant, and I don't have time for that. I was like, okay, well, we need to do some blood work. And we would look, and her kidneys were completely shutting down. By, the 6th week, I was like, look, man, like, I'm seeing pictures of you on Monday, and you look like you're ready, for the stage in a matter of hours. But I'm seeing you on Friday, and you look like you just left a buffet. Like, what do we got going on?
There's something else happening here.
Her stress from her job was so bad that it was causing her kidneys to completely shut down. Her doctor called her after one of her blood work, and she was like, you might need to go on dialysis.
Rough.
And so I had to ask him, like, are you taking drugs? Are you a closet drinker? Like, what do you have going on?
Yeah.
It was pure stress.
Jeez.
The stress was literally killing that girl.
That you hate to see that, especially at such a young age, like to have that amount of stress.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible for the body.
But that's where it all circles back to, is like, okay, sure, you got a lot of things going on, and you work in a stressful environment, but you're taking that stress home.
Mm-hmm.
You've clocked out for work, you're done.
Yeah.
Leave it there. There's no necessity to bring that trauma with you, because at the end of the day, you've taken what could have just been an easy inconvenience, and now you've turned it into emotional trauma.
Yeah, you've let something take control of your whole day.
Right. So going back to it, yes, hormone balance is huge. So when you look at blood work for women, and especially as they get older too, you're looking at the testosterone, you're looking at the estrogen, and you're looking at progesterone as well. As long as these things are balanced, your body will do everything it needs to do.
Yeah.
It's when they're out and you start seeing like, okay, hey, my testosterone's through the roof and I have no estrogen. Surprisingly common issue. Like, okay, well, now you have no inflammation control. Gotcha. And then people are like, well, I took an Advil. Then I took 2 Advil every day for 3 months straight, which is one of the worst things that you can do. So a lot of people don't know that NSAIDs as a whole, like Tylenol, ibuprofen, are extremely, extremely liver toxic. And they cause for a tremendous amount of deaths every year. But you don't hear about it talked about in the mainstream media because there's money behind it.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No worries. You're totally good.
There's no one even at the door. They're just barking just to bark.
They're just having a good time back there.
Yeah, they're just being dogs. Is that coming through on the microphone? Can you hear that?
It's in the background.
Okay.
It's hard to hear, but you're fine.
I'm trying to block it with my beard.
Maybe that's what's coming through.
There you go. It's that I got that dog in me.
Yeah.
So, that's always like a really big thing, is making sure that, there's that balance there. So when you do when people abuse the NSAIDs,
yeah,
not only is it extremely liver toxic, but there's another part to this that no one ever talks about. And I didn't even know about this until a handful of years ago. I have the world's greatest chiropractor, and I will take the Pepsi challenge. What this guy does and his level of knowledge, there's very few people that I've ever met that I'm like, wow, I don't feel very smart. He's one of those people. His level of knowledge is so just mind-blowing. You're like, how can one person possess so much knowledge? Yeah. And he's that guy. But he told me, he goes, what you're missing to that is what's happening to the neurons when it's sending out the electrical signal. So all your muscles are controlled through an electrical pathway. So when you end up, you see people with Parkinson's, things like that, or like, so splice that. So
yes,
gets all the dehydrated water out of that. So cerebral palsy. So you end up with a bad signal going from the brain to the muscles. So when you take, like, I don't want to say try this, but try this. If you're very in tune with your body, you know how it responds, and then you take ibuprofen and then go try and work out, you'll notice that the pump is nowhere near as potent as it was without it, because the signal is getting duller. So
it's a natural anti-inflammatory. Well, not natural, but it's an anti-inflammatory.
Right, but it's the way that it's pulling everything down. So NSAID is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Fun little acronym. So when you use those, they should be used as needed. If you're needing it consistently, there's something else wrong.
Yeah.
So that's one of those, underlying, severe health issues that people are not paying attention to. They're just like, well, I just took, 600, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen a day because my back was kind of weird. Okay, was it the back or was it something else? And, figure out, Are you eating foods that are not aiding that? Are you dehydrated? Are you drinking a bunch of coffee without enough water? And you're constantly pulling all of these fluids out. So, yeah, that was a very long way of going around that. But NSAIDs, not the business.
Yeah. Oh, and I think you said that was a long-winded answer to go around all of that, but I think actually that covers a very good basis for it. I think that gives us a lot of information and insight into your perspective on how and your experience on everything that you've come across when it comes to PCOS, insulin resistance, and different types of drugs and how they affect the body. So I think it's a great way for us to try and start, or a great way for people to try and start looking inwards and being like, okay, are there things that I'm kind of relying on constantly that maybe I shouldn't be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then, when you start thinking about it, you're like, okay, I feel like I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not seeing results, or I'm not feeling any better. One of the things that I see a lot of is people like, oh, I went to the store and I got magnesium and I don't sleep any better, or I'm not having an additional bowel movement, like the internet has promised me that I was going to have all these great things happen. Like, well, turn the bottle around. How much did you pay for that magnesium? They're like $6. I'm like, I guarantee you it's the wrong one.
Yeah.
So when you buy magnesium, there's a bunch of different options. There's three major ones. There's more than that, but it's three major ones. You have magnesium oxide, which is the one you don't want because it has a 5% absorption rate. So what you're getting, you're not actually getting.
Yeah.
Then you have things like magnesium citrate, which you can get in a liquid form. Most people know that as just like a laxative. You can get it in a capsule form, and still same thing, take a small amount and it will aid in the relaxation and it'll help you sleep as well. But if you don't need the aid in laxatives or beneficial, sleep improvements, then they have magnesium glycinate. Now that magnesium primarily focuses on the electrical currents coming out of the brain. So if you know that you're an endurance athlete and you're sweating a lot, especially in the summertime, right now it's pretty gross outside. You're sweating a lot and you need to have that electrolyte balance. And that's where, the magnesium, the potassium, the sodium, all those things come into play. So making sure that you're getting an adequate amount of magnesium, which most people don't get enough.
Yeah.
Look at the source of where it's coming from. Potassium is probably one of the biggest underlying issues too. So when people are like, oh, I have inflammation or I'm fighting, what they think is hypertension. And so they completely drop all their sodium out. It's kind of doing the opposite. You would much rather have more sodium in your system and then increase the potassium with it as well. But again, potassium is one of those weird ones that most people don't get nearly the amount that they should. A large banana is 400 milligrams of potassium, and the average just normal functioning adult still needs closer to 2,000 milligrams a day. If you're an endurance person where, you're doing, an hour of cardio plus weight training and stuff like that, your necessity for it is going to be dramatically higher.
Yeah. And I think that brings up a very good point, which you touched on. And I kind of want to go over again, which is bioavailability, how much your body is going to naturally absorb. And a lot of times when people do go and, even sometimes when they purchase these more expensive supplements, it still might not be the right dosage, because if your body, maybe it's 500 milligrams or something, but your body's only able to absorb so much of it. And so it'll say only take one pill, but sometimes depending on the person, you may end up needing more than just that. And so being able to understand, again, if you're deficient, if you're needing more of something because that one isn't doing it for you, okay, well, sometimes you might need one more. Now, it's not saying go and let's start taking all the pills, but it's that idea of kind of being aware of, okay, is it having the effect that it's supposed to? And then why or why not?
Well, and then that brings in like a really, really important thing that I try to get as many people to understand is supplements. It's literally in the name.
Yeah.
You are supplementing something in. You should be supplementing something in that you are either deficient in or you just completely do not have in the system. So people are like, oh my God, I take like 20 pills a day. Why? Do you need to take 20 pills a day? Probably not. And unless you're, dying, but I'm pretty sure you're not dying. I always recommend people do blood work. And unfortunately, depending on where you are in the world, it's not always the the most easy thing to obtain, especially
Yeah.
like in the state of New York. The state of New York is really weird. You cannot just go and order your own blood work. I have a couple athletes out there and they literally have to drive to New Jersey to do their blood work.
Rough.
It's super, super bizarre. But I don't have any partnership with this particular company. It's just a company that I've been using personally for years. We use Walk-in Labs. You pay for it out of pocket, but when you pay for testing out of pocket, it's relatively, cost effective. Unless even if you got, a full panel where you're taking, 15 vials of blood out, you're really only looking at like a maximum of like $650, and insurance would get billed a couple thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But it's good to have, because then you can see, what's going on behind the scenes. You could tell me like, dude, I feel awesome. And I see your blood work and I'm like, bro, you have no testosterone and your vitamin D is in the complete gutter. And you're like, oh man, but you've been feeling so bad for so long that you don't know what feeling good actually feels like.
Yep.
So having that little bit to showcase, maybe you even catch some underlying issue that you didn't even know. Like a lot of people are deficient in zinc. They look at their blood work and they're like, hey man, like my ALT is kind of weird, like, but I don't even drink alcohol. What's going on? ALT is for your liver. You have AST and ALT. But you start seeing things and you're like, okay, what are we missing? And then you can see something else in the blood work and you're like, oh, okay, these two things that are, out of whack, that's a simple fix with that. Or you're like, hey man, I take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every single day, but it says that, my vitamin D is basically non-existent on this test. What's the deal? Once you have that bit of information and then you contact me and give me lots of money, then maybe not lots of money, but a little bit of money. Gas is $7 a gallon out here, so cut me a break.
Yeah, fair.
So then you look at stuff like that and you're like, hey, my vitamin D is in the gutter. What's going on? I even supplement it in. I'm taking it in a really nice bioavailable form, in a soft gel. Why are my levels still down? So inside your intestines, there's these little finger-looking things. There's a name for it, but I like the finger-looking things better. Everybody, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a vegan, you could be a fast food junkie. It doesn't matter. Everyone at some point is going to end up with issues with them being clogged. And so inside those little valleys and the little finger looking things is how you absorb fat-based nutrition. And these are a relatively easy thing to clean out. So there's a couple different ways you can do it, but one of the easiest ways, without doing like a weird like lemon and water fast, because most people don't have time to do 48 hours of just lemon water, is you can take a thing that's called pepsin, Pepsin. This is a digestive enzyme that's part of the protease family. So its core responsibility is breaking down protein as an easy to digest form. When you take it just directly by itself, or you can even add okra, like there's a product called okra pepsin, and these two ingredients together are fantastic for this particular issue, is it will help clean out those little crevices. And then you go back and do your blood work without any other changes to your supplement regime. Your vitamin D will skyrocket through the roof. So that's a really easy fix, and it's a pretty common problem for a lot of people too. So it's very important to get blood work done so you can see what's going on. And, God bless you, you might be completely healthy and not need anything, and you just realize that you're lazy and you're not putting any work in the gym. That's a different conversation, but
also another option there.
yes. And that, what, God bless you, I hope that that's the case. I hope that you're healthy and you're just lazy, because that's a way easier fix than, hey man, my kidneys aren't working.
Yeah. Well, depending on the person, some people might be lazy and they're just like, I don't want to fix this.
That's true too.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yes.
Because that means just more for me.
True. One less person on that weight floor that we get to use the squat racks with.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate you sharing all of this. I think one thing that you said that was really interesting was talking about the pepsin, because that is honestly something that I had not heard of before. So that is something that is new to me. And that kind of makes me intrigued, because I want to segue just a little bit here. You have this vast knowledge of so many different topics, and you've been doing this for so long. I'm curious as to kind of your history along nutrition. How has your nutrition philosophy evolved over the years? Because between learning all about hormones and all these other nutrition trends that there are, you seem like you're somebody who's had a very strict belief in a certain style of nutrition. So how has your philosophy evolved over the years? Were there things that maybe you used to swear by that you've changed your mind on? Uh, or are you still pretty set in stone with things that you've believed in for years?
I don't think I've ever really had like one particular philosophy that I was like, oh, this is Bible, this is the only way or the highway. Um, I've always just been fascinated with understanding what is happening inside the body. Um, I don't know if you ever watch X-Files, but they're like, the truth is out there, which is true. I remember I had heard this years ago when I was just getting into bodybuilding for myself. And they're like, Dr. Scott Connolly, who is the founder of Metrics, a supplement company, brilliant man. Someone had, repeated something that he had said. He said that food is the most powerful drug that you can put in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're young, it doesn't really make any sense. You're like, food's not a drug, like cocaine's a drug. and Rick James loves that.
Yeah.
And so when I got into the deeper understanding of the nutrition, I was just fascinated. I was like, okay, if this one bit of food snowballs into all these other things, what else can it do?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think that I had a philosophy that ever really changed. It's just the knowledge expanded so far. And then going back to what I had said, I was like, people don't learn, they memorize. I didn't want to fall into that category. So I'm like, okay, let's learn. What is happening inside the body when it breaks down certain foods? Okay, I know now that, solid food breaks down about 8 grams of protein per hour. Okay, let me play with that math with different food. Okay, this food is really lean and there's not enough fat in it, so it made this particular athlete bloat.
Gotcha.
Okay, this person has a really hard time digesting red meat. Is it a genetic thing? Is it a bad cut of meat? Things like that. And so I could kind of figure out just more of the inner workings of the body. And now I think we're going to be celebrating 17 years of helping people this year. And,
Yeah.
that's a long time to tell people how to eat. I always think, I'm like, man, I feel like a food dictator. I just tell people what to do. Like, no soup for you.
Yeah.
But, with having, okay, there's a big difference between having knowledge. Like science on paper is very different than science in real life application. So understanding how that science on paper can interact with real life application is really, really crucial. So I don't think anything's ever really changed, but the knowledge has grown. So my ability to modify things to help people has just grown and evolved.
I love
But
it.
I don't think I can't recall me ever being like, oh, keto is the way, or, this
30
one
grams
particular
of protein is all you can have per meal. And
Okay. So like I've done my own stupid diets for sure.
Okay.
Just to kind of see like what would happen.
For
Like,
sure.
I've
As
talked
a learning
about this
experience.
exactly. And so, this is so stupid. One time I did this for 6 months. I'm not exaggerating. Literally for 6 months, I ate 6 meals a day, and every single meal was a boiled chicken breast.
Okay.
No veggies, no fats, nothing. Every single meal was just a chicken breast by itself.
That is
for
wild.
6 months, just to see what would happen.
I'm a little terrified to ask.
So I got lean, which was cool.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, my endurance was pretty good. So like I lived over in the East Bay at the time. And so I grew up at the bottom of Mount Diablo. And so every day I would do like a 2 or 3 hour cardio, just, like a power walk up to get towards like Rock City and come back down, which is usually kind of like my stopping point. Just be like, okay, like I got here. Now, it takes me an equal amount of time to get back down. So that was usually about 2.5, almost 3 hours of walking time. But I would do that every single day. And then, with no carbs and no fats, it was weird. Looking back on it, like one, obviously stupid, but two, more impressive than anything is I never had any digestive issues. Like I never had a problem going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Usually when people completely drop fiber out like that, they're like, oh, like I couldn't poop for a couple of days. I'm like, not this homie.
You're like, I was doing great.
I was doing
Poops
great.
solid.
Yeah, but eating gray chicken breast every day for that long gets boring real fast.
Yes, yeah, I would imagine 6 times a day. That is rough. That
Yeah.
takes some determination there. That takes discipline.
Well, and I was trying to think like how old I was when I did this. I think I was about 17 because I remember specifically that when I finished it, I was 255 pounds, and I was like, dude, I look good. But I was trying to think about it because I never added salt to it. Because this is way before real information was available for bodybuilders. It was just horrible internet forums of just idiots telling you more idiotic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just like, oh my God, sodium is the devil, like no salt. So like when I say that it was a plain chicken breast, there was no sauce, no seasoning, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
For 6 months. It was horrible.
I'll be honest with you. You've got a lot more discipline than I do. I don't know if I could bring myself to do that.
You're just, you're young and you're just gung ho about everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, stupid. Don't do that.
You're like, why?
I'm like, dude, you're missing out on ghee. Ghee is delicious.
I'll be honest. That is something that you actually are. What are your Derek and Tori put me on that. So your athlete, they were some of our closest friends, and I remember we had invited them over for dinner one time, and Tori was in prep, and they brought over some ghee, and I was like, what the heck is this? And now it's like that's half the stuff that we use. So
it's so good. It's so good. Man, so everyone's favorite meal when they're in prep with me is eggs, rice, and ghee.
Yeah.
It's just delicious.
It is. You've done a great job finding that, and it has changed my life.
It's such a neat thing. So it works really well with like the diabetes related stuff. So when you do ghee first thing in the morning, it really helps stabilize sugars through a good majority of the day. Mm-hmm. The nice thing about it too is like if you're in prep, getting clarified butter, which is just the butter without any of the dairy in it, like it's already stripped out the cream aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So that's why you don't want to refrigerate it. That you just leave it on the counter. It keeps the muscle bellies really full. So like everyone goes through prep a little bit different, but especially with guys that are like a really big muscular build, and they're like, oh man, like I feel like my carbs are pretty adequate, but I'm not having the same kind of pop in my muscles.
Yeah.
I'll give them an extra, 2 tablespoons of ghee, which is quite a bit of fat, but it really helps hold them over for several hours. Yeah. So clarified butter, most people have issues with it because they buy the cheap one and they're like, it tastes like soap. I'm like, yeah, that's because you bought the cheap one. Get the small little glass jar with the cow on it. It's $12. It's worth the money.
Yeah. Spend a little bit of money to keep yourself healthy, looking good, feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the women that haven't tried it yet, what it will do to the quality of your skin and your hair, mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love how you just come out and you find all these fun new things.
I'm so blessed that the athletes on my team, we have such a good communication, all of them. Mm-hmm. And so my opinion is that a good coach works with the athletes.
Yeah.
So I've never had an athlete be like, hey coach, like I want to try this. I'm like, no, this is my way. It's my team. Get out of here. I will listen to them. I don't always, say, yeah, like, let's do that, but I will gladly hear you out. And I had this one guy and he goes, coach, what's your thought on Greek yogurt? I was like, I mean, I don't personally enjoy the taste. So I was like, but it's not the end of the world. Why would you like some? He goes, I have a recipe for you. I'm like, oh no. Let's hear it. He goes, here's what you do. He goes, you get canned chicken and unflavored Greek yogurt. I was like, all right. Far away. And he goes, you mix it together and you put it in a waffle maker. And I was like, okay, hang on. Slow down.
You
what
lost
are we doing here? And he goes, it holds it together. And so you end up with a no carb protein waffle. I was like, all right, I'm on board for this.
You could be on to something.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, it doesn't sound great, but I also haven't tried it. So I don't want to knock it until I have.
because he said the same thing. He was like, most people think about, the Greek yogurt being relatively bitter. And he goes, when you heat it up and it mixes in with the ground chicken, he goes, there's no bitterness. It's great. You don't even know it's there.
Huh.
So that's a neat one. And then someone else taught me that if you're trying to get carbs in and you're just like, dude, like I cannot shovel all this food in my mouth all day long. You get a blender, cream of rice, white rice, handful of ice cubes, blend it together, and now you have rice pudding.
That's a good idea.
That was a really good one. So I've been really fortunate that people have taught me some cool stuff along the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, every once in a while, something will just come out of left field and you're like, that's pretty cool. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah. And then sometimes people just try and take the reins, if you want to say that. And you look at them and you're like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Not because you're trying to be a dictator, but because you're like,
I'm not being a food dictator. I'm just letting you know that we're not doing that.
Yeah.
That one's for the birds.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of kind of like how you're working with your clients and, personal life things that you've got to come through and come in contact with, what would you say has been this one is kind of one of the last ones I think I have for you today, but what has been one of your biggest challenges in coaching over the years, and what helped you get through it?
I think I've got two really come to mind, but they're very different. So dealing with, professional bodybuilders, at the level that I coach at is really, I don't want to say that it's stressful, but you have to be able to pivot on a dime. Because when you deal with people at that level, where you're dealing with people at the Olympia level that are literally the best athletes in the world, you have to watch their bodies literally by the hour. And having the ability to have the answers to fix things in the moment, that was a really big thing for me. And I remember it was probably, let's see, we're in 2025. Got dad voice.
There you go.
I think when I had what I call my breakout year as far as coaching at that level was probably about 4 years ago. And I remember being backstage and sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh, wow, like there's a lot of stuff that I don't know at this caliber. And so I spent every day for the year after that figuring out all the weird things that like gurus did. And once I felt confident, then I was like, okay, like I'm at a different level of coaching. And that was probably the biggest mental hurdle to overcome, was truly feeling confident at that level of coaching. Yeah. Because when people look at it from an outside perspective, or even people just getting into competitive bodybuilding, there's always this weird thought process that, that the big name coaches or the big, gurus from the 90s had some weird, drug concoction, or, there was some kind of, secret recipe that they only know. And as I got deeper into coaching at that elite level, I'm like, there's no secret recipe. You just got to not suck. That's what it really came down to. Yeah. And a lot of, the quote unquote not sucking was having a wide variety of knowledge so you could pivot. Okay. That was probably, one of the bigger ones. But the other one was when I started coaching. So I didn't go super detail into the story, but the first 8 years that I was helping people, I never charged a penny. So I did the whole thing for free. It took world records in powerlifting. We did all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah. And I never charged a penny because at the time I never felt that I had enough knowledge, or I didn't have any value. Like, what was I going to charge for, here I am, this young guy who I don't have, any credentials to me. I'm just a dude who likes to work out. Yeah. And then once I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, I am pretty good at this, and I've got a track record now. Trying to figure out what my value was a really hard one. And I know a lot of personal trainers that, that leave the big corporate world and they try and go on their own. They sit there and they kick the whiteboard. They're just like, I don't know. What do I charge? Like, what is my value? Because, the corporate gym presets that value.
Yeah.
Corporate says, I'm worth X amount of dollars per hour. It's like, okay, but when you're your own boss and maybe you can spend a little bit more time with these people, or maybe you can offer something a little bit outside of, what the corporate world allowed you to,
Yeah.
where does that value stand? And I remember that being a really hard thing for myself. And I've talked to some other coaches that do what I do as well. And we all had the same struggle. Like now, you're established and you know what your value is and you can charge an astronomical amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But getting to that is really weird. Like when you start, like I didn't know. I was like, I don't know, maybe like $50 a month. And they're like, no, you got to charge more. And I remember I had interviewed a bunch of business coaches. I had a friend, he's still a friend.
Yeah.
And his company grosses $1 million a year in coaching. And I'm like, I'm doing something wrong here. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you got to understand that I also have, sub coaches under me. I have a full-time assistant. I have an appointment setter and an appointment closer. Like it's a full operation. So it's not just me pocketing $1 million every year. It's the business as a whole. I said, all right, who did you work with? How did you develop this? Because this is not a normal thing. So I talked to every major business coach out there. You name a big name person, I talked to them. I sat down with everyone. I had business audits, and I remember us telling this guy, he was like, what do you charge for this? And I was like, well, and I was really weird about talking about the price. And I was like, I just, I want to help people. And I just feel weird about telling people to pay me $250 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And he just started laughing. And I was like, is it a lot? And he goes, for what you just told me you do, you are the most underpaid person I've ever met. He goes, we have coaches that charge $1,500 a month. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I can't charge people $1,500 a month. Like I'll have like 4 clients. And he goes, no, when you raise your price, you will increase the demand, because then people will want to know, why are you worth that much money? And when I made the jump to what I charge now, which is not $250, it was a really scary thing. And I remember the first time someone sent in an inquiry form and I sent it back, this is what we do, this is what we charge. And I told my wife, and I was like, dude, like, I feel like such a douchebag. I just told this guy that I was going to bill him X amount of money a month. And he sent me an email right back and he was like, when do we start?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that business guy was right. We're rich.
We're rich. We made it.
Yeah. But, so, establishing the value, that was probably the hardest thing as far as, the coaching went. Because keep in mind, like, it was just like a side little project. I never turned it into a business until I didn't turn it into a full-blown business except for maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when I did coaching full time. And that was scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, there's not like, oh, I could just work extra hours and I'll be fine. Like if we got to pay bills, like that was it. It has to work. There's no plan B. We totally burnt the ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was definitely probably the hardest struggle as far as, what it is that I do as far as coaching goes, was just trying to establish what my value is. And then once I started, really getting into the specialty work with dealing with the diabetics, dealing with like the neurological things and, some of the other specialty work, then, it was easier to have a broader reach than just, hey, I'm the steroid guru. Like I didn't want to be known as the steroid guru. That doesn't have as good sound. So being well-versed to allow me to just help more people. It wasn't even about a money thing. I just wanted to truly help more people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people don't know. I've only talked about this a handful of times on other podcasts, but when I was younger, I really wanted to become a doctor. I wanted to go to med school and do all that stuff because I wanted to help. And then I got into, a couple of, life little hiccups, and then I went a different direction. but I always wanted to go back because I was like, man, you know, like money's cool and all, but I just want to help. And then when I figured out how to turn the passion into a moneymaker, I was like, dude, I get to help people and they're going to pay me. Like, this is dope.
This is great.
Yeah.
Love this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, fast forward, you know, here we are 17 years down the road and get to look at a bunch of half naked dudes for a living. It's great. It's great. I love
Wonderful time. Exactly what you had in mind.
it. Totally. It was like seeing guys in thongs. Oh my God, what a career.
Dang, that's incredible. Well, congratulations on the 17 years. That really is a huge deal. I mean, you've been doing this for such a long time, and it clearly shows. I mean, you have a fount of knowledge, and you are still, in my mind, the same person that you have been since I met you. Just this jolly man with a beard who just loves getting to help people.
So, side note on calling me jolly. So my kid is my kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not uncommon for, a mini roast battle here and there.
Oh, it happens. Yeah.
Right. And so keep in mind, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I'm not a normal sized human. I'm 5'10". I'm about 284 pounds, according to the scale. I don't feel like I'm that heavy, but I'm a large dude.
Yeah.
So I'm standing in the kitchen. This just happened the other day. I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm having what I call my second dinner. You know, when you're that large of a person, you need an adequate amount of calories. So I eat the food, you know, with the wife and the kid. And then I go and I get a bowl of cereal. But it's just a bowl of Kix. Like there's no sugar added, anything like that. Kix is, you know, such a bland, just blah kind of thing. It's for volume more than anything, just to satisfy the stomach. And she looks over, my kid's daughter, and got to specify that it's 2025. So she looks over and she goes, "Wow, I feel sorry for you." And I'm pouring this bowl of cereal, and I'm like, "What? There's nothing wrong with the cereal." Like, she goes, I laugh. I feel so sorry for you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Because you tell all of your athletes to eat a certain way, and here you are eating cereal." I was like, you know what? First of all, I'm enormous. And she goes, "Yeah, your stomach's growing." Oh.
It's on.
Oh yeah. So I get no breaks. So apparently I'm jolly and I'm a food dictator.
Oh my gosh, man, kids, you gotta love them. Sometimes they just got no filter. They say it how it is.
Yep, spicy, but that's what's fun.
Yeah, that's a good time.
But I think for the most part, I think we got pretty much all of your pre-done questions. Did you have anything else shoot on the fly?
I mean, so yeah, I appreciate you. That was all of the questions that I had in the outline.